The Daily Ramble on Claret and Booze. Good afternoon, happy Wednesday, everybody, and welcome to the Daily Ramble here on Claret and Booze. My name's Gary, and this is my Daily Ramble. It's an interesting Daily Ramble. It's going to be quite fact-based. We'll start by talking about the manager situation, where we are at the moment, where we think we're going. Won't spend too long on that because there is nothing, how can I say, concrete at the moment, but there are some very good, interesting developments. And we'll also talk about the dumpster fire that is the squad and the damage that Moyes has done to that squad since he arrived, which is significant, let me tell you. Also, we're going to talk about some stats, some very interesting stats, objective measures of his failure to perform, especially this season. And we're going to go through that and tell you how terrible it's actually been, because if you read some people on Twitter, you'll think it's been a dream. It's been wonderful. We reached 2 quarterfinals, and because it had final in the word, that's kind of a final. Well, it ain't. But before we go there, please like and subscribe to the channel because it genuinely helps us a lot. If you need support, personal support, you may be able to join our support group. I mean, we'd have to sort of pre-qualify you first, but genuinely, we don't turn anyone with genuine issues away. And please drop Nick a text or WhatsApp. His number's out there. If you go to one of his videos, you'll find it in the description. And lastly, if you want to become a member and get access to the world's #1 private West Ham forum, which is feature rich, contains a lot of content that's not allowed on YouTube, and a lot of other benefits as well, for £5 a month. And that membership fee actually funds the support network. So that's really good. Good use of our money, I think. There ain't much of it, but we use it well. So on with the show, and with only 3 more games to tolerate, we're going to continue the endless series on David Moyes and his disaster class of a last season here. But first on the manager situation. So it looks like at the moment that Amorim, there was a lot of excitement around Amorim, and that came from David Ornstein, who's reliable, and I think the reading of the situation from those in the nose, if you like, or the people who tend to break the journos who are reliable, is it's not over yet, but it's unlikely. However, his wording was very careful after the game against Porto last week, where he didn't kind of nail his colours to the mast at all. He didn't say, no, I'm not going to West Ham, and it was a mistake and everything else. He more or less just made a really quick statement and got out of there. So that to me says he's leaving his options open. That is aiming for the stars with Amorim. There are other managers who wouldn't be quite so much. The one that Nick has mentioned already is I'd like to see a young, exciting manager who plays the right type of football. I would like to, there are so many options. When people say there aren't options, it's difficult to find a manager. Nonsense. Of course it's not. There's loads out there. Tim has a list. He's going to use it. He's working his way around. Meanwhile, Sean Wetwipe goes around on Twitter pretending that Moyes ain't going. Immediately after that failed attempt to promote Moyes' business credentials or value to the business on Sunday night, he put out a poll saying, would you rather have Lopetegui or Moyes? Now, that's a choice that's been created by the devil, right? That is it's not a choice. It's not a choice. I'd still take Lopetegui, by the way. And it was still close. It was almost 50-50, might have been 40-60, I don't know. But for Moyes to only just edge ahead of Lopetegui tells you what many people think of him. Now, Nick put a poll out there, straight after and said, what would you rather have, Moyes or anyone else? And anyone else won by 92.2%, completely contradicting Sean's poll. Anyone else would assume that Lopetegui ain't one of those anyone else's, if you get my gist. So I think Amorim's a maybe. I think Herr Flick from Germany, a bit unfortunate, but Hansi Flick is in the frame as well. I think Thomas Tuchel and various other people, but again, it's all just rumour mill at the moment. We won't know until this season's over. We know that Moyes is now having his last meeting ahead of the season ticket renewal deadline date, which is good. So if this is a big ruse by the club and holding it up, and at least they're doing that before the deadline date, which kind of means we're going to get an announcement before the deadline date. at least that would show a tiny bit of respect to the season ticket holders, even though there ain't much knocking about. But yeah, there's also people, pushing this narrative of Moyes staying around. Now, it's been denied by everybody, like Romano and Tim's German journo, he's going 90%. What Nick's hearing is they're working their way through that list, and he won't be around for very much longer, old Davy Moyes. And fucking good job too, because let's go on to the next item, which is around his dumpster fire of a squad that is leaving behind. We've got 22 squad players at the moment. We should have 25. We've got 22. He put 2 men out on loan and sold another one. That was our 25. No, he wanted a really small squad. So 22 players. 6 are out of contract at the end of the season. 4 are expected to be sold. You can do the maths. That's 22 minus 10. That's 12 players in the squad. Now that's what's left after the enormous high-quality squad that he inherited from Pellegrini. And in addition to that, he added Souček and Bowen straight after. But let's dig down, because there are a number of areas where Moyes has underperformed, and he's maybe bought a player and hardly used them, or used them in the wrong position, or players with zero resale value for one reason or another. Players not up to scratch, so substandard players, if you like. And players not given a chance to play in their correct position, and he's just dumped them out because they haven't played in a position he wants them to play in. So I think really we can't give him credit for Declan Rice, because as Declan Rice said, it was Pellegrini that helped develop his career. He was already on a massively upward trajectory by the time Moyes came in. If anything, Rice carried Moyes, and getting that money for a youth team player, 100 and something million for Declan Rice, I'm not crediting Moyes with that. No way. No way at all. He was growing in value year on year, playing in a side that played diabolical football. He was going to end up being expensive. Also, an England regular, right? Now, so take Rice out of the picture. We take Bowen out of the picture. I'm not going to include any players that I think have been marginally successful. I'm going to focus on the fuck ups, because to start, there ain't many successes. I mean, you could say that Souček is worth what we paid for him now. We're not going to really make a profit out of him. You could say, you will say definitely that Bowen's worth a lot more than what we paid for him. He's worth a lot more than 20 million, maybe 60. So maybe it's 40 million there. So that was a great signing without a doubt. But let's just focus on this big long list that I've got in front of me. And we're going to go from start to finish for the aforementioned categories. So, for instance, you buy a player for 30 million and the next day that player's worth 15 million. That's bad business, right? Because surely a club like West Ham should be looking to grow assets, to sell players for a profit. And that has got to be the objective for us, because that's the way we grow. We make profit on players, and then we buy more players, and we get stronger and stronger and stronger. That's the theory. But let's go through it. The comical one to start with is Jordan Hugill, who he signed in his first window, just after he arrived, right at the end of the window, from Preston, his old club. I suspect there was some kind of relationship going on with his old club, but 10.2 million for Jordan Hugill. Now, I'm going to say one thing you might be surprised with. I think financially, Hugill has ended up being a success, one of very few, right? Because we paid 10.2 for him, and yet we loaned him out 3 times for a grand total of loan fees of 19 million, right? So, first of all, I was a bit suspicious that he arrived, because he was worth nowhere near 10 million. But then he just turned into a loan machine. I don't know, was all this business done by the same agent? Was this some kind of game? I don't know, but I can't even be bothered looking into it. But it's a bit fishy, but nonetheless, we actually made a size, 9 million on Hugill, I think. But if we look at the rest of them, look, Haller, bought for 45, sold for 22. Krau, we actually paid 5.2 million loan fee for him. You can't discount those loan fees. It's money. It's money out the door, right? Vlasic paid 26, sold for 10. Benny paid 27.5. End up being sold for about 17, including loan fee. By all accounts, he's doing brilliantly over where he is. A great game the other day against Kera's team. Zuma, knackered when we bought him physically. He's only gone on from strength to strength, having more injuries, and we paid 30 million for him. He's worth 0. No one's going to buy him. We have to give him away. Phillips, 7 million, worth 0. Gone. Anderson paid 40 million. He sold him for 3.5. 3.5 million. And he's about to be sold, I think, to Juventus for about 35 million. Next, Aguerd. We paid 30 for him. He chased him for several years. If you're being generous, you say he's worth 20. I think he's still a capable player. So we still lost 10 on him. And 10's a minimum. David Moyes likes to lose on a player. Skamaka, we paid 30, sold him for 25.5, lost 4.5 million on him. Probably worth about what we paid for him in the first place. So we gave money away there. We could have kept him. We know he's a good player and he had a lot of promise. If only we'd shape a team around someone like that. Cornet, bought for 17 million. What's he worth now? What do you reckon? 5? So yeah, we've probably lost 15 million. 15 to 12 to 15 million. Ings, I think we paid 12 million for him. He's probably worth 2, if that now. Probably a free transfer, bearing in mind his wages. So we lost 10. Diop, and again, by the way, I know some of these signings weren't his, but that doesn't excuse him selling the player for a fraction of their market value, right? Because this is on his watch. So where was I? Diop, 22 we paid, 17 we sold, 5 million loss. Fornals, 20 million we paid, 7 million for a 27-year-old at his peak, Spanish international, who's never present for wherever he went. It'll come to me in a minute, honest. I'm not good with foreign teams. But anyway, huge loss. I think he's worth probably market rate. You'd have to say minimum 15 million for Fornals. Why the hell did we let him go for 7? Shows how desperate he was to get him out of the door for some reason. Kera, we paid 12. We'll probably get 10. We'll lose a couple of million. Downs, probably make a profit on him. You know, not on Moyes' watch because he bumped him out the door as soon as he could. Paid 10.5 for him. He's probably worth at least 15 at the moment, given his performances in the Championship this year. Probably Player of the Year. If you look at the rest of them, Lanzini, I think we paid 10 for him. He bumps him out the door at 30 years old for free. There was still a player in there. We could have got a couple of million for him, but no, we let him go for free. This is one of the worst sins ever. Ben Johnson. He's got to be worth, as a 23-year-old, you know, very likely end up being a great player for Crystal Palace. Probably be their right back for many years. Market value will escalate. At the moment, you've got to say he's worth about 15 million, surely. You know, he's a decent level Premier League player, 10 to 15 million. I'm going to go high on that. I went high on Aguerd. No, I went low on Aguerd as a loss. So I'm going to go high on this one. I'm going to say 15. And finally, and this might surprise you, but James Ward-Prowse, we paid 30 million for him. They saw us coming. They had their pants down, right? He's a good player, don't get me wrong, but he ain't worth no 30 million. If anyone says he is, I'm going to disagree with you. I think, really, if you went to in the resale market now for Ward-Prowse, what could you expect for him realistically? 15, if that. So we've lost because of his age as well. So we've done half of our money overnight just through signing a player that's got not too many prime years left on his contract. You know, and bear in mind, he wanted to add Maguire onto this for 50 million and McTominay onto this for 40 million. Maguire, no resale value, would have been worth 0. McTominay, you know, he was a bit younger, but he would have been worth, you know, probably might have got 10, 20 back in a couple of years' time, who knows. But anyway, look, in summary, that long list of players: Hugo, Haller, Krau, Vlasic, Benny, Zuma, Phillips, Anderson, Aguerd, Skamaka, Cornet, Ings, Diop, Fornals, Kera, Downs, Lanzini, Johnson, Ward-Prowse. When you look at how much money we've lost on them, that is about 179 million pounds, right? He's blown about 44.9 million per year of his 4-year stay. That's a lot of money. And it basically just, you know, that is all of that's more than the profit we've made from a few years in Europe, right? That's a huge waste. And that is the reason why we've gone from the squad that we had to the squad that we have. He's been drunken in charge of a checkbook, right? I'm very suspicious on his motivations with some of these, but anyway, I'm not going to go into that. But I think that demonstrates, objectively, you can't really deny it. If you do disagree with some of those values, let me know, or some of those decisions. But, you know, to me, it's just he's a professional money waster. I'm sure agents are making a handsome agents and intermediaries are making a handsome buck on some of these players, because it certainly seems in many cases that we overpaid for some of these. Now, I'm not suggesting anything, but I think it's it doesn't seem right to me. It doesn't seem right to me. We're being screwed over by some intermediaries and agents. Anyway, I am going to move on now to the next section. Let me know in the comments, by the way, if you agree with this dumpster truck analogy that I'm likening this to, because I can't think of anything else. It's a bloody mess. It's a whole rebuild. And I think he's done this just to try and stay employed, to force his way into another contract, because the club would have no option. And had he got Maguire and McTominay, that definitely would have been the case. Nobody else could have got a tune out of those fucking players, right? Nobody. Without playing a different system. So let's move on to the stats and analysis. And this is something that Nick tweeted the other day. I won't tell you who put it together, but it was a reliable person. They have been checked and cross-checked. These are accurate. Across the season so far, we've conceded an average of 1.86 goals per game. We face an average of 17 shots per game. On target shots, we face about 7.1 per game. Doesn't smack a great defence, does it really? Doesn't. Offensive, up the other end of the pitch. We score an average of 1.6 goals per game, resulting in a negative average goal difference of 0.26 goals per game. The team registers an average of 11.7 shots per game. Kudus, Paqueta, Bowen, Antonio, and we have 11.7 shots per game. Of that, though, only 4.1 on target. How bad is that? Strategic analysis. So when you talk about XG, the XG for the season was 50.04, while the XG against is 70.36. That's a negative 20.32. Possession in Premier League stats and Premier League matches adds 40.7% roughly to us. That's higher than I thought, actually. And the passing accuracy, 78.9%, which is really low compared to our peers in the Premier League. So let's look back at the last season, and bear in mind there's a lot of Europa League games against Tin Pot, Two Bob sides, the Europa Conference games, and in the Europa League this year. So we're talking about the 2023 season, the whole season. We played 60 matches. We won 32, includes all those crappy games. We drew 10, we lost 18, a win ratio of 53.3%, draw ratio 16.7%, a loss of 30%. 2024, the year of 2024, is seen a decline in the performance, with the team playing 22 matches, including Europe, winning only 4, drawing 9 and losing 9. So a win ratio of 18.18%, draw ratio of 40.9%, and a loss ratio of the same, 40.9%. So it shows a decline in performance in terms of win ratio from last season to this calendar year of 35.12%. A draw ratio increase of 24.2% and a loss increase ratio of 10.9%. All those stats are going the wrong way. And again, right, we're taking this from all of last season and the second half of this season. We know the first half of this season was all right. It was a good first half of the season results wise, terrible performance wise, but we're just trying to demonstrate the way we have literally fallen off a cliff this year. And when you look at some of these stats, if you were to compare them to what happened in the league last year, take Europe out of it, last season, it'd be very similar. So squad challenges, the average age in a Premier League squad is quite low actually. It's about 23, something like that. Our average age is 28.2, the second highest in the Premier League. We've got an old squad. Players such as Anang, Ogbono, Cresswell, Mbama, and Johnson are out of contract in 2024, potentially leading, especially, Mbama. Imagine him leaving on a free. Again, he wouldn't fetch great money at the moment, but decent money. for his Asian experience. Cresswell, Ogbonna, they're old. We're actually trying to re-sign Cresswell for a year at the moment. That's just like admitting we just need to put an English name on the team sheet to pad out the squad. I don't know about a name, so I can't comment on that. Departures of players like Paqueta, Aguerd, Ings, Cornet, possibly the horrible one. I'd hate this to happen. Kudus. I'd love to see Kudus play for a decent manager and see what he can do. Wouldn't you? But yeah, that would. I mean, imagine losing some of those players, Paqueta and Kudus. The others irrelevant really. But when you look at those and then you lose the volume in the squad, the actual quality, especially at the attacking end of the pitch, is severely less than what it is. Who would we have left? Bowen, who's excellent, and I love him, but we'd have a 35-year-old Antonio up front. That ain't much, is it? That ain't much. I'm sure Mickey would do a good job again, but he shouldn't be leading the line for the whole season. We've said that like 3 years ago. So it becomes evident. I mean, the conclusion of all this, right, is it's got to be a question over a very, very big question on David Moyes' ability to lead the club forward. Inconsistencies in performance, defensive vulnerabilities. We are terrible defensively, and he's a defensive manager. An ageing, tiny squad that will be left with 12 players at the end. We have to sign about 10 players. I know it's going to be made up of youth and loans and everything else, but we need to sign about 10 players. It's a changing squad. It's a complete changing squad. If you give up, given all this evidence, all this statistical evidence, I think together with what I explained around the players and the money that he's wasted, so on the business side, how the hell is he good for business? Unless, there are preferred intermediaries and agents making a lot of money out of transfers, I don't know. But how the hell he's good for business, I can't explain. Because that is just, that's black and white, what I explained to you there. All those players have either been, bought in, they're not good enough, or he's never used them, or he's chucked them in the bin, or he's played them in the wrong position and let them go fuck all. Right? He is single-handedly the man who can devalue an asset like no other manager. And that is not the profile of manager we want, especially when we've got youth coming through. In West Ham's position, we've got to be growing the value of assets, not shrinking them. Surely, because, like it or not, we are West Ham. We will have to sell once players get to a certain level when they're expected to play for a Man U or something like that. We might have to let them go. Hopefully, it won't be like that forever, but that's the way it is at the moment. That is the pecking order, and I don't care about that as long as we get the right value for the player that we've developed, and as long as we can have more than one player improving under a manager's reign in 4 years, because that is literally it. Can you think of another player, apart from Bowen, who I would argue did a lot of improvement himself anyway? I'd say that wasn't coaching, because we make it up the front end of the pitch as we go along. Can you name another player? Some said Mickey. He ain't improved. He was like, Mickey's always been capable of doing this. He ain't developed him and moulded him into a striker. It's just that he can bash people around really well, right? And he's always been able to score goals. So he ain't created him. Arnautovic, someone said. Well, no, he did that for Stoke before, he played up front for Stoke. He used to score like that. It was something that Billet should have done, right? He should have put him up front. But, the thing is, he's literally developed. He's added value, in my opinion. If you take those few players away, he's added value to nobody. All the transfer incomings, all the outgoings, all the money he's spent, and he's literally not added a fucking pound note to the value of that squad, unless you look at someone like Flynn Downs, who's gone off to Southampton and increased his own value. Or you look at Jordan Hugill, and fuck knows what was going on there in the first place, right? That's it. Is that the success story? Downs and Hugill? Really? Is it? So I'm going to leave it there. Thanks for watching. We're not going to stop these rants about Moyes until he fucks off. because we dearly want him to fuck off. We need him to fuck off to get football back and make it joyful again. We don't talk about him anymore. I can't wait. I can't wait. But while there is an unknown danger of that fucker hanging around, we're going to publicise every little weakness and vulnerability that he's got. And this today is his. If you had a list of about 10, I've got a list of about 20. This is probably second from top behind the youth team, right? In his abject performance in the transfer market, it is unlike any other manager. He is fucking useless. That's why Tim come in to sort it out, and all he's tried to do is undermine Tim. The guy is, I honestly, you know what I think of him. I'm not going to say any more. But I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please like and subscribe to the channel Clarence Booze. If you want to join the support network, send a message to Nick, a text message. His number's out there. If you want to become a member and fund the support network, again, the details will be in a video. Look at one of the previous rambles with Nick. I'll try and put it in this one, but I don't know if I'm going to get time. It's only $5 a month. You get access to a great platform, a very unique platform. And that's me done. See you soon. Enjoy the rest of your Wednesday. Come on, you irons.